when we say God is just, he always does what's right. He always does what should be done, and that he does consistently without partiality or prejudice. Did y'all hear that? God always does what's right. He's never partial. He doesn't exercise prejudice. He does what's right no matter what. Now, this is what and this is God's definition of righteousness. This is it. This is the crux of what we're talking about when we're talking about righteousness. This is God's definition of righteousness. God does it without partiality, without prejudice. So it doesn't matter if you're Latino or Asian, or if you're Hindu. Right is right, wrong is wrong. You got me? It doesn't matter if you're rich or if you're poor, if you come from a nuclear family, if you come from a blended family, or if you come from an orphanage, or right is right and wrong is wrong. There is no preferential treatment. It doesn't matter if you're from Upper Darby, or you're from Kensington, or if you're from Brooklyn, or you're from Florida, or if you're from California, or if you're from Asia, or if you're from Africa, or if you're from Istanbul or Zimbabwe. It doesn't matter. Right is right, wrong is wrong. Should you be able to, it doesn't matter where a person is from, is it right to spit in their face? It's not just. Right is right, wrong. That's how God is. No bias. Do we always operate like that? No. Do we have favorites?
Yes.
God does what's right. Here you go. Will you take ownership for all your behavior, good or bad? When you make a mistake, will you take ownership for it? That's what it means to be just. Even when taking ownership means you might suffer the consequences of your own actions. That's righteous behavior. You're not even, listen, this is crazy. You're not even allowed to be biased on your own behalf. That's righteousness. That's right. If you lie, or if you desire to lie to cover up a mistake you made, you're not being righteous anymore. I know that's kind of like obvious, but think about it. You don't even have the opportunity when you want to walk in the God type of righteousness to take your own side. You have to do what the Bible says. You have to hold your peace. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. You got to have faith in God. Look at David and Saul. I love the story of David and Saul. David didn't do anything wrong with Saul. David didn't do anything wrong with Saul. And Saul was trying to kill him. Now, in the world's eyes, the world would be like, defend yourself, David. He just threw his javelin at you. Go get him. Go get him. Even when the one time Saul was asleep, David snuck up on him, cut a piece of his robe, and took it and showed Saul. He's like, I could have got you. I could have got you. You were asleep. I tore your... But he didn't. Everybody else was like, why didn't you get him? Because David was righteous. David said, God appointed Saul to be king. And God will deal with him in his disobedience. And even though he's trying to kill me, I know I can never levy the adequate and accurate punishment that God has in store for Saul. David was righteous. Even though it caused him to be persecuted, he never went against the will of God. Even though it caused him to be a man on the run. Even though it caused him to go from living in the king's courts to living in a cave. He did the righteous thing. And eventually he ascended to be the king. Eventually, he became the ruler of it all. Will you be willing to do the right thing, the godly thing, the just thing, even if it puts you at a disadvantage? That's righteousness. That's that guy. But that's what it takes when you want to get back to your position of dominion.